Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Thalib again. I'm gonna do another video for you guys. So we've gotten to the final chapter of the Prophet, the farewell. It's the end of the Prophet's time with the people of Orphalese. And it's evening and he has to embark on his voyage home. And he's standing on the deck of the ship and he's addressing the people. And this moment right here is kind of like the last sermon that the Prophet made, Muhammad made on Mount Arafah on his last pilgrimage. Because up until now the Prophet in this story has been just answering their questions, but now he has to leave them with what he has to say, his own message, summarize his past 12 years of living with them in one single speech. So one thing interesting is in the beginning he starts by telling them that even though he's leaving, he's going to come back again in some form, and that even though death may hide him, he will continue to seek to be understood by the people. So if aught that I have said is truth, he says, the truth shall reveal itself in a clearer voice and in words more kin to your thoughts. So he's saying that that the stuff that he's talking about will keep being referred to by people. And it's really similar to this hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he says something like, and may the last ones of my people understand my words better than those who listen to me directly. So it's the same idea that even though he's leaving, even though he's done with his message, he will continue to seek to be understood by the people just by the way his words and his message spreads. And he says about their time together, he spent 12 years with these people. He says that he has learned from their longing and their laughter something that's beyond wisdom. And he says they should see themselves as an ocean, as part of a vast human being, a vast man, an ineffable, incomprehensible humanity. And he says that he's saying this not as a deception, but as the hard truth. So he's he's saying he's learned so much from these people as much as he's been teaching them, which is really interesting, from a prophetic point of view, that he's a human being who isn't just receiving revelation or whatever prophecy, but he's also a human being who's doing his own reasoning and everything. And then he says, he's addressing some of the complaints from people who said that he's proud and he's aloof and he's looking down upon the city from this mountain. And he says, his responds to that by saying, how can one be near unless he be far? And that the flyer was also the creeper, for when my wings were spread in the sun, the shadow upon the earth was a turtle. So it's this idea that you can't really understand something in a deep way unless you have some distance with it. And it's also kind of like the Sufi imagery of when they spin around, the dervishes, they have one hand reaching up to receive divine inspiration and another hand to share it with the world, which to me is kind of it's really inspiring, because you normally have people who try to put themselves in two categories, like somebody who is high and mighty and an ascetic, a religious person who doesn't involve himself in the world, and then somebody who's very worldly, who doesn't think that there's any point to religion. So it's kind of an interesting idea. So then he concludes his talk by his address by saying his basic message, which is probably the most interesting part, where he says, you are not enclosed within your bodies. That this is what he's come to say. It's basically the idea. And what's interesting about that basic statement is that any spiritual tradition, no matter how many gods they believe in, they have this idea of the spirit, of the soul. It's the spirit in the word spiritual is the idea that there's more than what your scientific rational mind can kind of lead you to believe about words or ideas or souls or human beings and their spirit and so on. And he gives a reason for why this is true, why his statement that you are not enclosed in your bodies. How do you know this? And he's like, wasn't it a dream that none of you remember having dreamt that built your city? So wasn't it something intangible that ended up resulting in something so tangible? So doesn't that idea, or doesn't that spirit which was used to, bring up the people and help them build the city, isn't that a real thing? Shouldn't that be a real thing that exists rather than just a collection of past, events or neurons firing in someone's brain that gave them this dream? He's saying that there's something called a spirit, and that's something that, whenever you say that, the author's spirit is really in this book, or you might say that, you know, God's spirit or something is you know, he breathed his spirit into human beings. It's the idea that, like, that an idea or something intangible has some sort of tangible value, which is really important for us as human beings. And so that's like what I believe that I share in common with every spiritual person, is the idea that, you know, I can believe, whether I don't know it, but I can believe in my heart that I am not just enclosed within my body, that I am a spirit also, that I am a soul, and that there is something called a soul, which can be, you know, beyond, you know, physical manifestation. So that's, you know, that's pretty inspiring. And then at the end, he's saying that, like, you know, so you are beyond your body, but you can't see it right now, and that the veil that clouds your eyes shall be lifted by the hands that wove it. Yet you shall not deplore having known blindness. For in that day you shall know the hidden purposes in all things, and you shall bless darkness as you would bless light. So, like, right now, I mean, we don't have any proof that this whole world isn't just material, and that there's no spirits, no souls, no God, no nothing. But you won't, when we, you know, God willing, you know, we will be people who will believe, and we will end up having this veil being lifted from us. But we won't be sad that we didn't know at one point, because that there's a purpose to not knowing. And he's saying, like, we, you know, that there's a value in the fact that in this world we don't know, that we have to believe that there's a need for faith, which is part of, you know, God's purpose. And finally, you know, after saying this, he gets onto the ship, and he says, you know, that they may meet again, but he's going, you know, he's saying farewell. And this part of the chapter really reminds me of the ending of The Lord of the Rings, where Gandalf is leaving Middle-earth for good, and he says, you know, not all tears are an evil. And he says, you know, he's going away for a long time. And I have a, you know, especially because of the language, I have a feeling that Tolkien was very inspired by at least the spirituality behind Khalil Gibran, if not Khalil Gibran himself, because I see, you know, in so many ways, you know, like, go my friends, you know, remember our time together, so on and so forth. So that was a really great part. And then everyone cries, you know, and they all shout as he sails away, except for Almitra, which is really interesting, because she says, it ends with her saying, with her remembering, a little while, a moment of rest upon the wind, and another woman shall bear me. So maybe Almitra is the mother of the next prophet, of the continuation, you know, the beautiful cycle of everything. So that's kind of what I got out of the prophet. It's a bit of a long video, but hopefully you guys enjoy. Thanks.